Here we go. All right. So it is are we on our third night already? Yeah, our third night of having some really great people share with us, especially for homeschooling. I feel like we've just released so much freedom and so much peace to women already. And I'm excited because I know that Jane's going to continue this. But I did want to address something that I've had a couple ladies ask me this. And so I do want to address it, because if you're thinking, oh, I checked into this and it's not for me, just know that everyone who's making suggestions here, please do your due diligence and check, is this right for my family? Is this right for my children? And one of the things that came up in one of our talks was the program of classical conversation. Is that the name of it? Yeah. And one of the things, it's just really pushing reading, the classics. And I know in speaking to some other people about it or whatever, that might not align with you. It does promote a very Greek mindset. And if you are wanting to foster, I'm walking carefully, if you want to foster a more Hebraic mindset in your home and with your children, classical conversations might not be the best choice for you. They do it also, you may not, that reading the books, the classics that they have you reading, that might not align with what you want your children to read in your family. So it's okay for something not to be a choice for you. So just knowing that if you were thinking, gosh, that doesn't work for me, I want you to, it's okay. It's okay for it not, that it doesn't have to all work for you. Tonight we get to have like a superstar. So not that the other moms weren't superstars, but
everyone's a superstar because we're all supposed to shine like the stars of heaven because we have insight.
That's right. That's right. But Jane, I say she's a superstar because of your experience. So with her experience, you're going to get superstar experience.
I'm a veteran of foreign wars.
She's a veteran of some foreign and domestic wars. Yeah. You might have read her Becky books. She's got Becky books. I'm going to read the titles for you. The 3 Days and 3 Nights of Messiah, The Sign of Jonah, and the Sabbath, His Days of Delight. Both Becky books. Again, I can't reinforce enough. These are really great small books, very economical. They're like all under $10. Most of them are like $5 or $6. Most of them are under 100 pages, and great for your great for high school, even junior hires. It's a great reading levels, and I can't recommend them enough. And I know Jane's going to kind of just touch on it a little bit, maybe how you use it. I'm sure the teachings, that's some of your teachings, but I don't want to take up her time. But if you don't know her from reading her books, then you know her from Women of Valor. She's the founder and director of Women of Valor, and blessing women all over the globe with her ministry and her children. Can't wait to hear from you. You know what? Can you just tell us, first of all, like, how did you start? What was your decision to homeschool?
Okay, when my children were really young, I was exposed. I was a Christian. My husband, who no longer is my husband, but he was my husband.
Wait, my husband. Okay, I got it. I want to use that one. My husband.
He was my husband. He's no longer my husband. He's the husband. But back in the day, at that time, when I started homeschooling, he wasn't walking with the Lord at all. So I really got impressed from friends about how important it is to teach. And we just had conversations. I had other believing friends about how important it is that we teach our children God's word, and that they have time to study the Bible and to pray and have that be the foundational class, or, the basis for what we're doing, because it's our responsibility as parents to teach and train our children. When we delegate that responsibility to a school system, whether it's private or public, it's just taking away the responsibility. God gave you those children to raise those children with as much wisdom and insight that you've got at the time. And if some people can't homeschool, but I highly recommend it. I mean, after this pandemic, a lot of people tried it and found it worked. And all of a sudden we're the superstars because we've been doing this for years, but reality is it was hard to make that decision. But I also had my oldest, I also had this idea that, well, at least I'll homeschool until he's 8. And so that way I can nurture, teach more about the Bible. And then we also, at the time, their dad was always getting a promotion, and we're always having to relocate and move, and we would have to move faster than the military on shorter notice. So we would be like, okay, in 2 weeks you need to be in New Jersey while we're living in Texas. And we would like, okay, we'll go. And then, oh, well, they changed their mind. They said, no, we want to move you to Florida instead. We're like, okay, here we go. And so we would literally go looking for houses, have the movers come, move up everything. And I didn't have to change schools. That was the way I could sell it to my unbelieving husband. We won't have to change schools. The kids will have the same teacher, the same books. They won't lose, they won't have to go through all that chaos. So that's kind of how he came along with the idea. Hey, this might work for my career and my life. And, it took some time later. He became a firm believer in, for the 25 years he walked with God. He was a solid man of God, and he, did want our children learning the Bible and learning history from a biblical perspective and learning science from a biblical perspective. So that's why we did this, because if you get in the public school or even other, you don't know what they're going to teach. You don't know what they're going to say. And I felt responsible as a parent to train my children up in the way they should go. So when they're old, they won't depart from it. You hope they'll come back to everything that you've already put into their souls, when they're older and grown. They all have different challenges in life, but at least I know that I did my best in nurturing, encouraging, and giving them biblical foundation. What they do with it when they grow up is, God doesn't have any grandchildren. Everybody has to become a child of God. They all have to make their own individual choices. But that was my reason for homeschooling and how we started.
I heard you when you're just like, you don't know what they're going to teach in school. My husband brought to my attention, there's a story today, or this week he read, I got no recently, that there was a teacher in public school who had taken down the flag out of school and replaced it with a pride flag, and she was making the kids stand up and do stuff to this pride flag in her classroom, and encouraging them in that. And you just don't know what's happening. And if she's not fired, she's just saying, oh, you can't do that, and then still does it. And it's like they're tenured. What are you going to do? So I think that that's one of the reasons, like you're saying, a lot of women, a lot of families have chosen to homeschool. How many total children homeschooled start to finish for you?
I homeschooled 9 children. I had a new addition every other year. So it's like every 2 years we had a new baby. And so I homeschooled, my youngest was barely in school and my oldest went off to college. Think about it from that perspective. Yeah. So yeah, it's a big span. And I think the best way to do that is to teach subjects, as many of them as you can, at the same subject at different levels. And that was how I did that. It was like, when you do science, everybody can learn about the body at the same time. Just make it easier projects and subjects and papers and things to do for the younger children. And when the older children can learn the human body in a much greater detail and can write reports and papers. And, it's just kind of like work it together where you're all learning the same subjects as much as possible, breaking it down by, age level, abilities. So that helped, for things like science and history. We just did group projects until they got to high school. Obviously, I didn't do that. I put them in a tutorial when they were in high school. From 9th grade on, they went once a week with a group of homeschool, families. That was great, because then they were getting biology was being taught by a veterinarian, somebody that loves biology better than me. It's great to learn biology from the veterinarian and, political science from the mayor. People that are in politics, things that it just experts in what they are teaching. So that's how I, the difficult subjects like foreign languages and things we did through a tutorial. But science, when they were younger, was everybody did the same subject. History, everybody did the same, just different levels of it.
So is that kind of the one room schoolhouse principle? Is that kind of what you're?
It would be for some subjects. Obviously, you can't do that with math, and you can't do that with reading because everybody's at different levels. But you would it is a little bit more of a one-room schoolhouse where you do as much as you can while they're small. As they get older and they're much more independent and they can learn on their own, you can give them assignments and they don't have to be in the same group context, because that's what the tutorial method of teaching does. When our children went to high school, it's preparing them for college, because they are literally going to once a week. They go to a class for an hour, they get the assignment for the whole next week, and then they have to have it prepared and ready and come back. And so it really prepared them for college, where you have to do so much work on your own at home. So homeschooling kind of prepared them for the tutorial prepared them for college. So they did well.
That's really good. So we have, I feel like we've spoken a lot to women who are maybe brand new, and telling them about just sort of, not to walk in freedom, really to walk in freedom because I think that they're very hard on themselves. Do you have like some advice for the newbie, and then maybe for the veteran who's like, I'm burned out. How do I keep it going? Because I can imagine with 9 kids, by the third, you probably had seasons where you're burned out.
Yeah, I'd be tired at the end of the day, honestly, very exhausted at the end of the day. But there was an older woman once that had, she was spoken of and she wrote in a woman's magazine way back. And she talked about the importance of rest in every day. She actually had raised children in an orphanage. And she said in the orphanage, they took an hour to come apart so they didn't fall apart. And what she meant by that is every afternoon there was an quiet hour in the orphanage. But I thought, well, this is a good idea at home. My children need to learn how to be quiet for an hour. That doesn't mean they had to take a nap. Some of them did because of their age. But I would set them in different parts of the house, in different rooms. I mean, we didn't have enough bedrooms for everybody to have their own bedroom. We had so many children. So, somebody'd sit on the couch in the living room, somebody'd sit in the family room, somebody would be in the bedroom, but they had to do quiet things. They could do a puzzle or play with their Legos or read a book. If they were really young, I made them do it on their bed because then they might fall asleep, but I was nursing babies, and that would be my time to go after lunch, to go take the baby, lie down in the bed, nurse the baby fall asleep, and I'd probably doze for 20 minutes, and it just refreshed me. So it was like taking that hour to come apart so you don't fall apart. I would feel so much better after that break that I could go back to the second half of the day without being exhausted. I'd be refreshed. So I think it's important to do that, is teach your children how to be quiet. I mean, most people don't even have a clue how to make their children be quiet, but it's really not that impossible. I mean, they should know how to entertain themselves by themselves for an hour. Yeah, there were times they didn't obey. There were times we had to deal with it, but sooner or later they got into the routine. This is what we do. We take an hour, and this is my time to be by myself. And I think some of them really, especially the introverts, they kind of enjoyed alone time and having a rest, and they loved reading their library books. I mean, I always got them books at the library, so they had all kinds of great things to read. And so the quiet time was a lot of times library hour for the older ones. But that was a good way to get started. The other thing about, I always had a plan A and I always had a plan B, because plan A is like, if the day goes perfectly, I make a schedule. I literally had to make a schedule. It's terrible to sound it. I had to know when I was supposed to nurse the baby and when the baby was supposed to take a nap, because there's just so much going on and so many questions and so many things. I literally had a chart, like what subjects I'm teaching when to whom. And then I had a little heart on there. Like if the heart was filled in, this is nurse the baby goes to bed. If the heart isn't filled in, it's nurse the baby's awake right now. But it just helped me create some kind of structure so that I could literally get things done. I was going to look up, it's like planning, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And it's in homeschooling is the same way. You have got to go through and really get some kind of notebook, design what you want to accomplish within a year. I used to go away to like a homeschool convention and get all the books and materials and then plot out the upcoming year. Or even sometimes, the kid's dad would send me away just for like a weekend to go in a hotel and rest. And I would do lesson planning for the whole year. Like, it was like my alone time. I didn't have to cook or take care of the babies, or I could just go and focus on what I'm going to do for the upcoming year and make a good plan. Whether that plan actually works or not is another whole story, but that's why you have plan B. Because if this doesn't work, if something else happens, maybe grace is to give yourself, oh, I'm an hour behind today. Plan B, everything just an hour behind, and we'll have to skip something. But you have to do that because life is, you're potty training and nursing, and somebody gets sick or somebody breaks a leg or something. There's always something that's going to happen when you got children, and so you have to have a plan A that if you hit. And I used to think I only hit plan A like maybe 3 days out of the whole month. I just like those days were like, yay! So I lived off plan B most of the time, but they all made it through and they did great. And most of my children have gone on to college, and done great in college. So, but I think having some kind of schedule, a plan, like a daily plan, what I'm going to do during this hour, it might be like Tuesdays, Thursdays, you do certain kind of classes, and Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, you do others. It helps just to be able to function and to get things done and not feel like you're falling behind all the time. The other thing that I learned with being Messianic, as a Messianic believer, our life is in a different cycle than other people are. The Christian homeschoolers that I knew, they go to church on Sunday. I was going to fellowship on Shabbat. Most of my young children's lives, it was a home fellowship, when they were young, and then later it was a congregation. But so we always, I really struggled to try to do school 5 days a week. It was just like, I couldn't get it done and then enter into Shabbat peacefully. And I prayed and I said, Lord, what am I going to do? This just is not working. And he said, just teach 4 days a week and teach year round. So I started doing that. Fridays were, we cleaned house in the morning and we ran to the grocery store. And back in those days, we used to go to Pizza Hut for lunch, because, quick. I didn't have to clean up anything. But we would go out, sometimes we'd go to a different place out to eat, but the kids and I would go out to eat, we'd get the groceries, we'd get back. It's time to prepare the afternoon to get ready for the evening dinner. And we had home fellowship so much of the time that we always had a house full of people the next day on Saturday. So we really did need to get our house clean and in order and put the toys and the books and everything away to make it, to be hospitable. So that was a really good plan for us to just do 4 days a week and then take the feasts off rather than taking a whole summer off. Who needs the summer off? Really, you don't. Kids lose what they, most of the time in public schools, when they've had a whole summer break, they have to spend a while of review to regain what they've forgotten. And if you don't take that big of a break, the children don't forget what they've learned. And so, we'd go to conferences or, Sukkot or Hanukkah or Purim or whatever. We would take the biblical holidays off, but we had the liberty to do that. And sometimes I would count those as educational days because we were talking about, if we were doing something at Sukkot, it was like we did plays and art projects and, fun things for the kids too. So I would count that or field trips, count those as school days is where you're going. And we always made a on purpose trip, like to Washington, D.C. and, different places just to log in. These are the days that we are getting school done. And sometimes you just got to be creative. Sometimes school is making bread, or sometimes school is, learning how to measure all the ingredients in a recipe. These are life skills. It's called home ec class. When I was in high school, learning how to sew. I mean, I literally took classes in that, and boys can learn how to, and girls too, I should say. Learn how to build and be, shop class and things like that. You can buy birdhouses to put together and just call it a shop class and things like that. So there's just a lot of creative things you can do with your time. But I think the way to be gracious to yourself is to realize God's called you to this. and he'll equip you for it. And you will be able to get through it, even if you feel like you're just failing miserably. I always felt like I was like scoring a C as a teacher, just like I'm just an average. But I figured, hey, even if I'm just the average homeschooler, I'm better than what's happening in the public schools. So I always felt like I give myself a C as a homeschool mom, just an average mom getting things done. But my kids all did great. They graduated with honors from college and got into college because of I think homeschooling just makes you think harder on your own. And I think that helps. Like, they might have a question about their math and I'll be like, I'll get over there in a little bit when I'm done nursing the baby or I'm done changing the diaper, just wait. But then instead of waiting, they plugged through it themselves and they ended up learning. And by the time I get over there, they already know what the answer is. I found that happened a lot. So I think homeschooling makes children more proactive and take responsibility for their own learning, which makes them smarter, just makes their brains process things in a different way than if they're constantly being fed by somebody everything they need to know. So
I have so many things written down. Like, first of all, I have to say, I used to say all the time we were, in nursing school or whatever, there was the big joke is like, what do you call the medical student with a C average? Doctor. Like, no, like, so we so look down on ourselves for that. And I'm sure way above average, you've got all of your children through and they're successful adults and there's, that's not a C for sure. And I'm laughing because when you were talking about being quiet, because there was a book that was brought up yesterday. Went back to go find it. Teaching from Rest by Sarah Mackenzie. I did post it over under last night, but it was the whole book was about teaching from a place of rest. And I used to play this game with my daughter, be like, okay, it's time for the play the quiet game. And she's 29 now with 2 kids of her own. And she said the other day, she was like, Mom, you don't even realize how long it took for me to realize that wasn't a real game. Like that was you just needing me to be quiet. So you were like, let's play the quiet game. Who can be quiet the longest, and that was the game. I need to know where you went. And I do see your hand up, Arian. I'll be right with you. Where did you go to this convention for the year? Was it a certain organization that you went with?
Well, back when I lived in Florida, there were just homeschool. It was before the Teach Them Diligent, event happens every year here in Tennessee, or actually it's been in different places, but it was a similar type thing. A lot of local, state, area people would put together a homeschool convention. So I would go to that, and it's a curriculum fair, go and listen to all the speakers and learn what you could learn. And that was always just a highlight, to get away and to get to do that. And I really gleaned a lot of information and learned about all the different kinds of curriculum. It helped me make my choices for what I was going to teach the children. So that was good.
Oh, that's good. Okay. And then Stacy says, wait till it's time to replay this. No earbuds are going to be on then. Hubby is going to hear. Sometimes I was sent away for quiet time. Boy, that would be wonderful. So you have a lot of women who are going to be like, you know what? You need to send me away so I can do this. Ariane, you want to unmute yourself? So Ariane, or I don't want to mutilate your name. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's a different name. It's Arian. I just wanted to say, yes, my children are here. Biggest props to everyone who is doing homeschooling. It was something I am considering, but at this point in my life, I'm just not quite ready for that. But I just wanted to share a testimony from a lady in our Messianic community in Regina. She had homeschooled her children, and this young man now who is about I don't know, it doesn't matter how old he is. Anyways, he has been he was homeschooled, and he has just been accepted into a PhD doctorate program in a university in Ontario for studies. So he didn't even have a high school diploma, but through the grace of God and, his, God makes a way for us regardless. So I think that's really amazing for everyone who is doing homeschooling. And even though you're you may not get, I don't know exactly how it works. Yes, Aaliyah's starting kindergarten. Anyways, yeah, but that God will make a way anyways for things. Like, it was just so amazing to see Ben share how he didn't even have a technical high school diploma, and he went in and he did a master's degree right away, and then now he got accepted into a doctorate program. So yeah, it just shows that even if we don't conform to the world, that we will be blessed anyway. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
My son-in-law is an example of that, because some places, my children were able to get diplomas in the state of Tennessee, so they all have them because of our umbrella school. But my son-in-law, he didn't. He just took the GED just so he would have some that he's done, and then he went to college and he graduated and he got accepted into Harvard Law School. So homeschooling can work. In reality, it really does work. I think a lot of colleges prefer homeschoolers. They actually like to have them. Our children all went to a Christian college in Tennessee. It was a Church of God college, which they were all very welcome there. And fortunately, it had a great program for financial aid. Your ACT score gets you a certain amount of financial aid. And so that helped us out amazingly. At that time, I don't know if it's still the same way, but it was Lee University. And if you scored a 24, you got half tuition. You only had to pay half. If you got a 27 on your ACT, you got full tuition paid. And as long as you kept your grades up, it stayed that way. So a lot of my children went to school and it didn't cost us anything, because they all had 27 or, and got in, or higher, and got in, and didn't have to pay tuition. We had to pay for room and board, but, somebody would have to do that anyway, but it was really helpful. So homeschooling really works. And that was one thing when I started out, I didn't know. I felt like I was doing this big social experiment. Like, is this going to really work? Are my children going to be normal? But they end up being more normal. They end up being able to relate to everyone at all different ages. And that's something that, they're not like peer pressured into, oh, that person's 2 years older than me, I can't talk to them. That person's younger than me, I'm not going to talk to them. They don't do that. They're just really socially interactive with all ages. And I think that was a real beautiful thing that I just didn't realize was going to happen when we homeschooled, but it was great. They were able to relate to everyone and do well. So that was a very good thing.
That is a topic that we haven't addressed. And that's usually the one that we get all the time. Everyone's like, well, they're not socialized. If we have an issue with socialization, if you're homeschooling. What I personally have found, and again, like co-school, and then we did a lot of programs. But what I have found is every child that I have met, whether they're young or older children or young adults, I can usually tell if they've been homeschooled because of their ability to socialize with every age group.
Right.
Like, they're not awkward around people that are older than them.
Right. There's truth in that. There's always a few nerdy homeschoolers who are they would have been nerdy in the public school too. You know what I mean? They're just kind of booky and going to hide and shy. There are shy people in this world, but for the most part, our kids, like I said, when they were young, we did some kind of co-op with some friends. And so they had interaction. We did sports like, citywide baseball, softball, things like that. When we started keeping the Sabbath, we ended up not being able to keep up with all that because it just got to be too much. Because a lot of things happen on Saturday. But, my kids were involved, and you can find music lessons. And even when they're in high school, like when I did the tutorial, our tutorial had them, both my sons were on the football team. They had a cheerleading squad. My youngest son's fiance was a cheerleader. They had proms and they had dances and, fall harvest parties and go skiing, just events that they could do together, go to wilderness camp, do different kinds of things. So there's a lot more interaction. You just have to take the time to invest into it. It doesn't come automatically, but you can find it, and that helps them develop friends. And one thing about being Messianic, I just want to say, as a Messianic homeschool mom, there's a lot of drama, unfortunately, in a new movement. When there's the new move of the Spirit starts something new, and then whenever there's a little light, there's always some bugs. But reality is, I felt like our congregation was one little sphere of my children's life experience, but the Christian homeschool group was another, and they had different friend bases. And it actually, I think, helped them, because sometimes when a drama would happen in our local congregation and somebody get mad and their family leaves, because it happens, they would have another friend base over here that they could also rely on. And I feel like it's really important to have more than one source of friendships outside of your, some people just only have their congregation as their source of friendships. But, could be a baseball team, it could be a dance team that you're part of, something else besides just your local family and your local, everybody who's like-minded, like-kind, because it doesn't always stick. Some things happen, and having a better friend base makes the world less shaky for them, because they have other people maybe with different paradigms, different ways of thinking. And it also is kind of good for them. I don't think just cloistering them and saying this is the only way to go is the only thing. I think they need to be able to have some freedom to meet other people and learn. So that was good. That was one thing I was grateful for. We had a fabulous support group with our Christian homeschool friends.
Could you give some tips? We talked before we got going on the Becky books, like how they could use those as curriculum.
Yeah, there's questions in the back of the Becky books where Halisa, she's the one that wanted to get this started, and she has her doctorate in education. And so she's like going to make sure we're teaching. So the Becky books are designed for like homeschool moms to teach. Basically, they're at like a 10th grade reading level at max, So it's like a homeschool mom could read them out loud to their children to teach them, like mine's about the Sabbath, like what, it helps them understand if they're little kids, this is what the Sabbath is about. Or, if they're older, they can go through and write out the answers to the questions, or they can write their own paper based on their own research. What do I think the Bible says about the Sabbath? And they can reference the book. And so it's helpful. I think there's a lot of subjects we're trying to get all the basics filled in, like the dietary laws. I mean, there's one for Robin Gould's got one about, vision. Is Peter's vision about, is it a beacon or is it about bacon? She goes into it and she talks about it. But, the kids need scriptures to stand up for what they believe in, because when they go somewhere, like I said, their cousin's house who doesn't do what you're doing, and they want to have them eat a pepperoni pizza, the kids are going to have to be able to say, well, no, that's not what we do. Then the reason we don't eat that way is because, and give an answer based on their knowledge of understanding of scripture. So I think it's important for the kids to know things that we do as parents and the choices we make, because they got to be prepared when they go out. When they go out at 8 years old to the neighborhood birthday party, or go off with their grandparents who don't agree with you, that you're teaching the kids wrong. My kids, it was so awful. We'd go to my family's house, and I don't know, they just always forget that we don't eat pork. It would be just like, they'd always forget. And I would just be like, and they would put it out, and I'm like, I have to go whisper to the kids. So it's terrible. Guys, they don't know. They don't, that isn't turkey bacon, and, it was kind of like, I wish they'd just quit that, but it didn't, it didn't happen. And so, but I wanted my kids to know why we ate the way we ate, and why we worship the way we worship, why we kept the Sabbath. And the Sabbath is Saturdays. It's okay. Church is on Sundays. You can go to church any day of the week you want to. It doesn't matter. But Sabbath is the day of rest. So I wanted my kids to grow up with that understanding. I think that Becky books can help. with that. There's some subjects, obviously, Halisa's are deeper, the thicker they get. The books, some of them are really thick, and they're not meant for children at all. They're not even, they might even be theologically way above a 10th grade level. Some of her newer books, and you'll recognize they're thicker. I told her we should make up a new cover design so her deeper, thicker books didn't look like the same as my basic beginner book does. So, but we're working on that. One thing, I don't know if anybody's brought this up, but this is my favorite book. Has anybody talked about this so far? It's called A Complete Guide to Celebrating Our Messiah in the Festivals. It's written by Susan Mortimer, and it's a compilation of all kinds of homeschool moms' ideas and thoughts about how to teach Hebraic things to your family. I mean, this book is huge, and you can photocopy it, and there's just like games and for every one of the holidays, every Jewish type thing that we're doing is within this book. And so I have really loved this, and I found this when my kids got older. She also has one on, oh gosh, what's it called? It's about science. It's a science version like this, where you can teach a lot of subjects. I think it's about God's creation, considering God's creation seems like what it's called. But these are really great books, and I think that if you're new to learning about the feast, what a better way to teach yourself while you're teaching your children, because this guidebook is so simple and it's all laid out, and there's so much you can do. You can lesson plan this whole book into your life, and I mean, she's got everything in here. She's got learning how to write Hebrew letters. It's how to do Passover. There's a Seder in there, and recipes and all kinds of things. So it's a great way for new people in the Messianic understanding of the faith to experience, the feasts and learn more about them, why they're doing them as a family. I just think it's a great book, and it was out of print for a while, but I looked yesterday just to make sure it's back in print, and they do have it, so you can get it. But it's I think it was like $39 for this book, and it is almost 700 pages.
I looked right now, and it looks like it's up to like $125 now for that book.
Really? Are you sure? Is that on Amazon?
I'm looking on Amazon, so do you need to find it somewhere else? I just posted the link on Amazon.
I think I went directly to her website.
Okay.
So it could be
125.22. And so, yeah, go to her website and find it. That's
okay. Yeah.
Or buy it used, if you can't.
Buy it used.
They've got used ones on here for $40. Like 11 used ones right now for $40.
That's what they normally cost. It used to be, but paper's gone up and everything. So she might, but I think I saw it for $39 yesterday. But it could go up. It's put out by Eagles. The website is eagleswingsed.com. Eagles Wings ED like in ed.com. And
got it.
It's all about the books of the Bible, Hebrew letters. They have like dot to dots. They even have a thing about how to tie tzitzit and make your own tzitzit. And I mean, it's loaded with everything you need to know to do the Hebraic understanding of the faith for a whole year or longer, because you probably can't do all that in 1 year. You probably can cycle it around again the next year, but I think it's fabulous.
She has a lot of things on here, ladies. There's all kinds of things on, looks like curriculum, everything else for educational materials, Eagles Wings, educational materials. So
yeah, she has lots of great stuff. So it's a fabulous resource.
Yes, buy it from her site. It's only $39.95.
You found it for what?
I found it $39.95 on her site.
Okay, great. So here we are coming up with Feast of Trumpets, Rosh Hashanah, and she's got pages of the background, the history, why people do different things different ways. There's a whole outline guide for celebrating Rosh Hashanah. Some people call it Yom Teruah. Some people call it Feast of Trumpets. But it's all about, there's skits and things like that you can do in here. There's songs. It's just really well done. So I see there's how to make, she's got 2 songs written. She's got something about making an apple cake and what the sounds of the shofar are. So it's just really chock full, what the message of the shofar is. There's always, there's some things that are a little harder for little kids, but you can always give them a coloring page kind of related. I used to do that with my younger kids. I had certain toys. This is something else you can do is a good tip is have certain toys that only come out during school hours while you're busy with the older children. Like my younger ones, we had this Duplo set, and we would call it Duplo school. That was their class. And they could only play that for that certain hour, while everybody else was doing their math. They could play Duplos. And I actually gave them certificates of graduation. I gave my kids all a certificate, you've graduated a grade, and I'd give the little kids, oh, you graduated a Duplo school. I don't know, just kind of but it was, if you keep things up that you only take out during school, then they're not bored with them. So that was a good thing to do. Another thing I did as a mom with many kids is I would hide stuff, like put it away. Like my older kids, they're done with a toy or a puzzle or a game or whatever. Hide it, put it away, and next year bring it back out and give it away as a fresh new gift. Yes, they didn't know. And they're thrilled. They got a new thing to play with, and age appropriate now. So sometimes you just recycle things. When you have a big family, it works.
That is great. And that special toy works also, mom, when you're on the phone, and maybe if we have a lot of moms who are working from home, or maybe you have a little side business you're working out of your home and you have to do calls, or you have the special toys that only come out on the phone when you're on the phone, because they're quiet toys, but they're the really special ones that you set out. That's the one they can only use when you're on the phone. So that's such a great idea. I love the Duplo certificate. Looking for questions over on Facebook, just hearing lots of love that, love that, love that. Thank you, love it. And I posted the link here over on Facebook, also on here for the website, where that's only $39. I'm getting the book. I know I'm going to go get this. She's going to be like, what's the run on my book all of a sudden? But yeah, it's only $39.95 there. Don't go to Amazon and get it from there. I don't know what the Amazon one looks a little different, but
yeah, it could be. They were out of print for a while, so I can imagine they went up high on Amazon for a while, but I think she's got them back in print. So that could be why it's up high at one point. Yeah.
Any questions? Anyone have any questions? Sorry, I'm a delay on my end. I apologize. Erica says she's in a heated game right now of apples to apples with her kids. So what else? I had something else that I asked. Prepping for college, because were so successful in that. A lot of time, how did did all 9 of your children go to college? Did I hear you correctly?
Well, one son went to like an auto body collisions, repair school, because he's dyslexic. And so reading was just not his thing. And so he went and did something hands-on, but all the rest of my children did go to college. Yes. One of them started, and then he got bored because he didn't know what he was going to do. So he dropped out, even though he was on the dean's list. He was doing great, but he ended up becoming a project manager, because once he found what he wanted to do, project management was just perfect for his skill set and his way he thinks. And so he is doing amazingly well as a project manager. He's got to work towards getting his PMP, which is the certification for project managers, but you have to have years of experience to get that, but he's on his way to do that. So I have three. My oldest got his master's in business. My son John graduated. A lot of my children graduated with degrees in communications, which is kind of interesting because our family, speakers, teachers, writers, it's kind of the natural. So my next two had degrees in communications. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she's working on her second master's degree. She's a teacher, and was working on thinking about maybe being a principal. She's not 100% sure she wants to do that because she's really more into helping children with behavioral issues. So but she's working on her second master's. And then my next child, he also has a master's. So my kids have not only gone through high school and through college, several of them have working on their master's degrees or have finished. And so it works. I think part of finding a tutorial program, I think really helped prepare them for college, like I said, because it was like they weren't getting everything from mom. And I also dual enrolled some of my younger children when I realized there was such an option. When they're in high school, they can take classes at a local community college so they can get college credit before they graduate high school. That's another way to get practice going to college while you're still living at home, to enroll in some kind of dual enrollment program. That's a real great way to go, and it saves some money, and that prepared them a lot. I think just a lot of the preparation for them was giving them responsibility, delegating to them what they needed to learn. And, as a mom, you're always having to check in every day at the end of the day. One thing I wish I still had some, but I used to use these plastic folders. They're like report cover kind of things, but they had a little flap on the top that could hold the papers. So like when my kids were little, or, they had their math, subjects, I'd have it all lesson planned on one page and then put the assignment behind. But they had to do the work even when they were little and then turn it in at the end of the day so I could correct it. And so some of the things are just getting assignments done on time is a big deal about going to college, is getting used to having a deadline. That's why a schedule is a really good thing for moms, because this book has got to be done by this date. How do I plan this out so it actually gets done so we don't go into the next year? Because completing assignments on time is a responsibility aspect that everyone needs when they're in college. So I think delegating them the work, but also making sure that they follow up when they're little, and when they're older. The tutorial was really great because they had to stand in front of a class if they, I didn't finish the report, I don't have my speech prepared, or, I'm not ready for the test, so things like that. It actually helps so much having that tutorial because, we moms, we're like, oh yeah, I know, you don't feel good, you got a headache, I'm sure, we might be a little lenient and compared to somebody else. And so they kind of take advantage of that sometimes. They know that. They know how to work you because they know you too well. And so having teachers that they're accountable outside of the home is a good thing as they're getting older in high school. So you're not the only authority figure in their life. You're not the only teacher in their life. And that can be if you have youth group or you have Bible studies at your congregation, you can also get them involved in those kind of things where they're learning and accountable to other people besides you. That's the best way to get that.
I like that. Cinnamon is asking the question, do you see a shift with college education for today's teens?
Well, you know what? You have to be really careful about college education, no matter what. And this is really sad. No matter what, it's going to say it's a Christian college, but they're going to not everybody is the same kind of believer that you are. Not everybody believes in the Bible the way you do. And, I feel like some undermining of the instructions that they were given at home was undermined even in a college setting, or challenged. Maybe the best thing to say is challenged, but at the same time, I just got done graduating college myself, and I went to a Baptist college. So, their theology is not mine on several areas, a lot of agreement, but there's a few places of disagreement. But, they really want you in college to be able to prove your point. If you can prove your point from scripture, why you believe what you believe and why you do what you do, and you have an answer, they're like, okay, whatever. If you want to do Shabbat, great. That if you want to celebrate the feast and you write about it. And, I was blessed with a really accepting, college that didn't kick back on that. And it could be because I'm older, maybe because, hey, you're not going to change me. I'm 20. I'm not 20, but at the same time, I think it's real important for kids to know what they believe about what they think, politically, especially get that real solid, because a lot of undermining of politics happens. This whole critical race theory that's going around, parents need to know about it. They need to study it. They need to recognize it. They need to show their kids how to recognize it. I mean, I didn't know about it when I was in college, and I had one class and I realized I was, the critical race theory is basically that all these superior or, male dominated white supremacist kind of organizations are oppressing, it's about oppression and victimhood rather than, and so I ended up having a professor who was actually touching on this, and I didn't realize it because I didn't know to recognize it. So I think that's really important as parents to look into this critical race theory and to be aware that it's such a huge political agenda, and it's in the public schools majorly. It's in colleges that say they're Christians, not as obvious, but it's there too, and you need to be aware of it.
It's in employers now. You can see if you follow the news, that's also being mandated for employers like Verizon, AT&T. There's a big long list of employers that are now requiring that they go through that theory. And if you go through and read that, it's what it's rooted in. And I know Keisha and I have had this conversation a lot. It's rooted in fascism. So teaching your children what is that, and why that doesn't align with what you believe. It doesn't mean that you don't, and you believe that everyone is created equal, everyone is created in the image of God, and everyone's creating these things. And how do we come from the tree of life, not the tree of knowledge of good and evil? And how can you, I think someone, Ruth Camargo says, so good, yes, teaching them apologetics and how to defend their faith. Because like you said, it can be snuck in because and someone's real feeling like, I mean, I have, there's women on here who are going to hear this and be like, what? Because they believe that they still think they don't understand what it's rooted in. And so because they haven't done, really, if you do your due diligence, go in and research what it's rooted in, where it comes from. You want, Marxism, it's rooted in Marxism. I apologize. You want to really see like, what does that mean? And where was it birthed out of? So do you know? Cinnamon says, would you teach a biblical homeschool class to help be an authority figure in our teens' life? Oh, would you personally teach a biblical homeschool class to help be an authority figure in our teens' lives?
Well, that's a very good question. I have actually been spending the last couple of weeks rethinking a lot of things based on my schooling and what God has been building within me and teaching me. And I started to realize I really care in a way that I want to get the millennials ready for the millennial kingdom. What I mean by that is the millennials and the Gen Z, I have to think about it. What happens if in Hebrew it's generation Tav, like the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet? And it's like the people who have the mark of God on their heads, you know what I mean? And I got to thinking maybe I should work on developing something like a curriculum that would address, this last days generation. So it's just something I've been thinking about because I'm going to start working with some young ladies in our local community. Doing a mentoring kind of program with them. I'm not sure how it's all coming together yet, but it's a vision I have had for Women of Valor for a long time. Because if we're only speaking to the level of the boomers and the Gen Xers, we're going to lose the next generation. And I believe the millennial generation, they're going to be the ones, there's more of them than the boomers. And the boomers are dying out. So reality is, the millennials are going to be the most powerful, influential generation of all times. So I want to get them ready for the kingdom and help women become warrior brides in the kingdom, help, men find co-laboring partners, allies in this spiritual battle we're about to go through, which we are all the time, but we don't always, as we get to the end times, I really feel like it's vital that men and women find their alliance with each other and build each other up and not subject, patriarchy, matriarchy, who's ever in chop, instead be co-laborers in the kingdom. So I'm working on something with it. I don't know when it'll be ready though. So
that's exciting. So for all of you who've been on here the last few days, I want you to know how much you've inspired all of us here. Is like, I've been talking to all of the ladies as we're switching over to a full nonprofit. We have board members and all the drama. So, and the good things that comes with, we've been talking about, what a need there is in this homeschool area and what's come up. And literally everyone has said it that I've spoken to in the last 2 days. Every single woman has brought it up. They've all said, wouldn't it be great if we had women who taught a unit on different topics, and that we had almost like a co-op environment where there was an environment which we have, in the Rooted Cafe. It's easy for us to build that out, but to put in literally units to where different women could teach on the topics that they were experts in, and put units in for other moms to be able to show and teach. Like you were saying, it was great having tutors and great having other people speak into the kids' lives for things that they were really good at, but it could be of all kinds of things, right? That we could teach our kids. And so who knows, guys, keep praying. Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But we hear you.
Yes.
He hears you. He knows. And we're blessed that you all care enough that you're trying to grab onto these generations and equip them, equip them. I know. I love that that's your heart right now. Generation Tov. Can you believe it?
Yeah. Generation Tov.
Before.
Well, I actually texted somebody last night in Israel and I said, okay, what are you calling Generation Z in Israel? I want to know what do they call it? I mean, that's an English version of Gen Z. What do they call in Israel?
Yeah.
I don't know. He hasn't answered me yet. So I'll find out. But I got to thinking, what happens if there are, the next thing they're going to go is to Generation Alpha. So they're going to go from Tav to Aleph in Hebrew. That'd be interesting. So I just wonder what they call it around the world. Yeah. So
I pulled up, this is your son, right? This is your son's
my son
journal?
has a book. He also has a great book. I don't know if I have it here. It's called The Marriage Commandments. Yeah, John does that Torah study book. He does. It's a great book for writing down your notes throughout the year on the Torah. It's a Torah portions notebook, and it literally has space to write down your notes and to keep track of it. So it's a journal while you're going through the Torah cycle. So that's great for the fall. Yeah, it's a great time to get it right now when we're about ready to start a new cycle. But he also has an awesome book called The Marriage Commandments. It's about the 10 Commandments and how they are God's ketubah with his bride Israel, and how would that relate to a man and woman in their marriage, and how, you shall have no other gods before me, but obviously you shall have no other spouse before me. But he kind of puts an analogy with it, but he also does a lot with reflection, like how a wife reflects her husband. And if a husband doesn't like something he sees in his wife, maybe he should see what he's causing that reflection to look like. And it's really a great marriage book, and a great kind of preparation for marriage book for somebody to read. I've got a young man in my congregation. I met him on Sunday. He was talking about how he's really got this passion to start, preparing for a family and marriage and teaching other young people about it. And I said, I got the book for you. I'm gonna bring it. So that'll be good.
I just posted the link from Amazon, so y'all can on both chat over here. And any final questions? Now, okay, Erica says he has the journal, but I'm gonna have to get him the book now that he hasn't intended.
Ooh,
good. Her son. What a great gift. What a great gift for your son.
It'd be a great gift for both the bride to be and the groom to be, to actually read together and then discuss, it's just really good.
Sombra says that she said, we read that book last year at Shavuot. It was so good.
Good.
Yay. Summer's
Good.
up in Canada. Summer is our
Good.
few. Good. Any last final tips for our ladies? Thank you for giving us your time. We appreciate you.
I think we're kind of quiet right now. I don't know if anybody's.
Yeah, I don't have, I'm looking at any other questions. Do you have any other final tips? Any final tips for our moms as they're jumping into homeschooling now?
The most important thing to do at all in this day and hour is what's always been the most important, is seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And then everything else gets added to you. So I'm like, get up in the morning, pray. Get up in the morning. I used to do special time with my little kids. It's like they were so little, didn't know how to pray, or so we would get out special instruments and go through the house, little kids' instruments, and go through the house and do like a parade and singing praise songs. But get up and worship with your kids. Get up and pray. Get up and read the Bible. Just put God's kingdom first, because then you'll have more peace in the whole day. And I think it's important for moms to have their quiet time and realize you don't get much because you got a nursing baby and you're up and but just don't think I used to think, oh, I don't have a whole hour. Oh, I can't tarry a whole hour with the Lord. Oh, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And I was like, I'm just going to thank you for what I got right now. I'm just going to thank you for this 10-minute nap. And I'm just going to be thankful all the time, because that's a way of praying.
Oh, thank you for that. I going back, I'm hearing the old song in my head, the seek ye first. So I'm just really, that's the second time I've heard that today, is truly that's our priority, has to be seeking him first, really everything else. Or, if we have our eyes on him, then we're going to get, the rest is added to us. So thank you so much. Thank you. And Jane is in the portions. So if you have questions, you could tag her and write the little question out, and she'll eventually see it and she could get back to you, or you private message her. And especially if you're a millennial and you want some encouragement and you want to have her encourage you in what you're doing and going through.
I've been doing as much as I can this month on the Women of Valor page to post edifying things, in light of not being able to have the conference. I was just going, okay, Lord, what are you saying to your people today? What are you saying to your daughters? And then he just gives me something to write. So someday I'll take all those little posts and make a book, but I haven't gotten that yet. But I think a lot of times I hope to write more blogs and things like that, just to encourage these young women to be ready.
Please go to Women of Valor on Facebook, or on their website, and also go on to Facebook page, join it, like it, be there, to be able to be encouraged in there and be an encouragement as well in there, please.
Yep.
Please go support the ladies that are in there and be supported as well. So thanks again. Be blessed.
Thank you so much. It was great to have this time with you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone. Appreciate
Blessings.
you all.
Shalom,
Blessings. Shalom, shalom.